Meet Ryan and Steve, both 32. Both live in the same mid-sized American city. Both earn $80,000 a year. And after years of packing lunches, canceling subscriptions they forgot they had, and convincing themselves store-brand cereal tastes exactly like the name brand stuff, both have saved up $80,000. Financially, they're twins. Personality-wise, not even close. Ryan craves stability. He wants a place that's permanently his, a garage for tools he may never learn to use, a backyard he can obsess over, and the freedom to paint every wall exactly the shade he wants. Steve wants options. He has no idea where he'll be in 5 years, and honestly, he likes it that way. The thought of being tied to one address for the next 3 decades makes him mildly claustrophobic. Two personalities, two completely different money moves. Ryan buys, Steve rents. And for the next 20 years, we're going to track every mortgage payment, every rent hike, every surprise repair bill, and every dollar Steve invests instead, to see where two people who started identical actually end up. Ryan finds the one. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a small yard, a garage big enough for exercise equipment that will collect dust. Price tag, $350,000. He puts 20% down, $70,000, leaving a $280,000 mortgage. Then come the extras nobody warns you about loudly enough. Closing costs, lender fees, title fees, inspections, prepaid taxes, and roughly 46 documents he signs without fully reading. Closing costs typically run 25% of the purchase price. Let's call it $10,000. So before Ryan even unpacks a box, his entire $80,000 is gone. $70,000 down. $10,000 in closing costs. His 30-year fixed mortgage at 7% runs about $1,863 a month in principal and interest. Add roughly $350 in property taxes, $150 in insurance, and $290 set aside for maintenance, about 1% of the home's value each year, and his real monthly housing cost is $2,653. Meanwhile, Steve rents a comparable house nearby for $2,000 a month. No taxes, no insurance. When the water heater dies, that's someone else's problem. That leaves Steve an extra $653 a month. He's tempted to blow it on a trip to Thailand, but instead, he dumps his full $80,000 into a broad stock market index fund and invests that $653 every single month going forward. Here's the myth people love to repeat. Renting is throwing money away. Buying builds equity. Technically true, but misleading. In Ryan's very first month, $1,633 of his payment is pure interest. Add taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and out of his $2,653 monthly cost, only about $230 actually builds equity. The rest, $2,423, is just the cost of having a roof over his head. Steve's $2,000 in rent builds zero equity, sure, but calling that wasted while ignoring that most of Ryan's payment isn't building wealth either. That's selective math. Then, 3 years in, Ryan's water heater dies. He watches a YouTube tutorial titled Easy Fix. Anyone can do this. 4 hours later, he calls a professional. A few $100 gone, exactly what his maintenance fund was for. After 36 payments, Ryan's mortgage balance has dropped to about $270,835, just over $9,000 in principal paid off, with 3 to 4% annual appreciation. His home is now worth $382,000 to $394,000, giving him roughly $112,000 to $123,000 in equity. Steve, meanwhile, has paid $72,000 in rent, but his original $80,000, growing at 10% annually, is now worth about $16,000 more on its own. Add 3 years of monthly contributions, and his portfolio sits around $130,000. After 3 years, it's a dead heat. Ryan has equity he can't easily touch. Steve has a portfolio he can liquidate in a click. Ryan can repaint his living room whenever he wants. Steve can move next month with zero hassle. Ryan's mortgage payment is frozen in time, but property taxes climb as his home value rises, insurance creeps up, and an aging house starts sending pricier repair bills. Steve's rent, meanwhile, ticks up about 3% a year. $2,000 becomes $2,060, then $2,122, and keeps climbing. His $653 monthly cushion slowly shrinks. Time is starting to favor Ryan's fixed cost, but Steve still holds one enormous advantage. His original $80,000 has been compounding in the market this entire time. That's opportunity cost, and it's one of the biggest hidden variables in this whole comparison. Ryan's money isn't lost. It went into an appreciating asset, but it did give up its alternative path. Jump to year 10. Ryan is 42. His home, appreciating 3 to 4% annually, is now worth $470,000 to $518,000. His mortgage balance has fallen to about $240,000, leaving him $230,000 to $278,000 in equity. He walks around like a man who owns half of every brick in the place. Steve's original $80,000 alone has grown by roughly $27,000 on its own, and combined with a decade of shrinking but steady monthly investments, his full portfolio is worth about $290,000. He's still ahead on paper, but his rent has climbed to nearly $2,700 a month versus Ryan's frozen $1,863 mortgage payment, now year 20. Ryan and Steve are both 52. Ryan's home is now worth $632,000 to $767,000, mortgage balance down to $160,000, roughly $472,000 to $607,000 in equity. Only 10 years left on the loan. Steve's original $80,000 alone has ballooned to around $538,000 at a 10% average return. Factor in 2 decades of monthly contributions and their growth, and his total portfolio lands near $750,000. On pure net worth, Steve edges ahead, but look at the shape of that wealth. Steve's is liquid, sellable in minutes. Ryan's is locked inside a building. He can't sell 8% of the kitchen no matter how badly he needs cash. And Steve's original $2,000 rent has climbed to around $3,600 a month with no finish line in sight. Ryan's mortgage, on the other hand, has an expiration date just 10 years away. Steve's entire result hinges on one fragile assumption, that he actually invested the difference every single month for 20 straight years. When the market dips 30% and the news declares capitalism dead for the 4th time that decade, he still has to invest. In real life, that extra money often becomes a nicer car, a few vacations, a slightly upgraded lifestyle, and the portfolio that looked amazing on paper never actually gets built. A mortgage, by contrast, is forced savings. Ryan never has to decide whether he feels like building equity this month. The bank has already made that decision for him, and behaviorally, that discipline is worth a lot. But buying has its own traps. The first is time, sell after just 3 years, and closing costs plus early interest-heavy payments can wipe out any advantage. Buying needs years to pay off. The second is mobility. If a great job offer shows up out of state, Steve packs and leaves. Ryan has to sell, eating transaction costs, or become a landlord juggling a mortgage in one city and rent in another, hoping his tenant actually pays on time. Then there's concentration risk. Steve's portfolio spans thousands of companies. Ryan owns exactly one house, on one street, in one city. If the local market slumps, he can't rebalance by selling the upstairs bathroom. And finally, liquidity. Need $20,000 fast. Steve sells some shares. Ryan refinances, borrows against equity, or sells the property. Home equity is real wealth, but it isn't particularly easy to spend. So which is better, buying or renting? Honestly, it depends. Buying tends to win when you're staying 7 to 10 plus years, letting transaction costs get absorbed while principal actually piles up. Renting tends to win when home prices are high relative to rent, when flexibility has real value, and critically, when the renter actually follows through on investing the difference. One rough gut check is the price-to-rent ratio. Divide the home price by a comparable annual rent. $350,000 divided by $24,000 a year gives us about 14.6. As that number climbs past 20, renting and investing starts looking a lot more attractive. Neither path was smart or foolish on its own. The real question isn't buy or rent, it's how long you're actually going to stay and whether you'll genuinely follow through. Buy and leave in 2 years and the advantage evaporates. Rent for 20 years and spend the savings instead of investing them, and there's no advantage to celebrate. Both Ryan and Steve were paying for housing the whole time. Ryan through interest, taxes, insurance and repairs. Steve through rent. Home ownership can absolutely build enormous wealth. It's also an illiquid, concentrated asset with a roof that occasionally sends a $12,000 invoice. 20 years later, the gap between Ryan and Steve was never really about who bought and who rented. It came down to what they each did after that decision and whether they stuck with it.